Hey everyone, it's Tomer, and welcome back to Budget Commander. Ravnica Allegiance has just come out and everyone's excited about the brand new cards, so I decided to do another video to capitalize on the hype train, this time talking about Nikya of the Old Ways. This new Gruul commander offers a huge benefit at the cost of a significant deck building restriction and is definitely one of the more interesting commanders to build around. Nikya offers your deck a huge ramp source right in your command zone, basically doubling the mana your lands tap for. We've seen this style of ramp before in other cards like Mana Flare, Zendikar Resurgent, and Mirari's Wake. These cards are some of the strongest ramp available in Commander, letting you power out huge spells or just play your hand way faster than anyone else at the table. So having such powerful ramp available to us at all times in our command zone is a really big deal. There is a catch, however. We can't cast non-creature spells when Nikya is on the battlefield. This is a big restriction, but realistically, we can easily build a well-rounded Gruul deck entirely composed of just creatures and lands if we wanted to, since there's literally thousands of creatures available to us, and there's creature options for everything a deck needs like ramp, card draw, removal, tutors, and so on. In fact, we can turn Nikya's restriction into an advantage. Rurik Thar, Nullstone Gargoyle, and Thorn of Amethyst are absolute staples in a Nikya deck since we break the symmetry of these cards by running far fewer non-creature spells than our opponents, so these cards heavily punish our opponents but don't affect us at all. I'm going to take this concept even further and add the almighty Primal Surge to the sample deck list because it fits so perfectly in the deck and is one of the flashiest ways to win the game, flipping your entire library onto the battlefield and burying your opponents under maximum value. Oh, and speaking of non-creature hate, if you're feeling very brave, you can run Assault Suit in this deck. Just cast Equipment, then cast Nikya and equip her. Your opponents will gain control of a big ol' 7/7 that can't attack you, but more importantly, they won't be able to cast any non-creature spells on their turn. On the other hand, their lands tap for twice as much mana to ramp out creatures, so it's a risky play. But a Nikya deck isn't for cowards, so I highly recommend this inclusion since it's hilarious. So this is the game plan for Nikya. We are going to build a very creature-heavy deck that is looking to ramp hard and power out some insane turns. We're going to run a ton of creature synergies and land synergies to fully take advantage of what Nikya offers. The majority of this video will be about creature options for Nikya, then I'll talk about the most important non-creature cards to run, and finally I'll show you 3 sample deck lists at different price points: $35, $100, and $200. As always, these videos are meant to be an overview of the deck, and if you're looking for a more in-depth guide to Nikya, then check out the article in the video description where I go over literally hundreds of card options for the deck. Alright, the first step to any deck is the mana base, starting with the ramp. Nikya's ability scales with lands. The more lands we have, the more mana we generate from Nikya. So land ramp is going to be valued higher than usual in a Nikya deck. Sakura Tribe Elder, Farhaven Elf, Wood Elves, and Yavimaya Dryad are all easy inclusions in the deck due to their efficient land ramp, with the latter 2 cards also doubling as mana fixing if you're running forest dual lands like Stomping Ground, Sheltered Thicket, and Cinderglade. Similarly, Dawnshredder Elk, Burnished Heart, Solemn Simulacrum, and cycling a Sheffet Monitor also are great sources of land ramp for the deck. My favorite of the bunch is actually Sheffet Monitor because it not only searches up basics but also deserts, including 2 great cards for the deck, Endless Sands and Scavenger Grounds. Not bad for a cycling lizard, eh? Since we're already running land ramp to maximize Nikya's value, we might as well run 2 other cards to do the same thing as Nikya. Regal Behemoth doubles the mana produced by our lands and draws us cards as long as we're the monarch, which should be easy to do since we'll usually have a ton of creatures to protect the crown. And for a higher budget, there's also Vorinclex, everyone's favorite Praetor, which will undoubtedly get groans from your opponents, but that's only because that's all they can do when this wonderful creature enters the battlefield. More great ramp options include creature restricted ramp. Since most of our cards are creatures, Somberwald Sage, Shaman of the Forgotten Ways, and Beast Caller Savant are going to be some of the top mana dorks for our deck. Shaman of the Forgotten Ways even doubles as a win condition in our deck, since if our opponents have less creatures than us, we can usually activate this ability and attack to win, and if an opponent has no creatures at all, then they just straight up lose the game when we activate it. Now on to my favorite aspect of Magic, card draw. We're going to be ramping a ton, so it's very important that we keep our hand full of sweet cards to spend our mana on. Since most of our spells are creatures, cards like Beast Whisperer, Garruk's Pack Leader, Soul of the Harvest, and Primordial Sage draw us a card whenever we cast most of our spells. We can also draw cards off the top of our library to great effect. Again, since nearly all cards in our deck are either creatures or lands, Vizier of the Menagerie and Garruk's Horde let us play all the creatures, while Oracle of Moldiah and Courser of Crucifix let us play all the lands off the top of our library. It feels amazing playing a whole bunch of cards from the top of our library each turn. And here's some very unique powerhouses in our Nikya deck. Duskwatch Recruiter is an insane mana sink for all our ramp, letting us basically get a creature each time we spend 3 mana, and its flip side is sweet ramp as well. There's also Heartwood Storyteller, which helps our opponents, but will always help us the most since we play the least amount of non-creature spells. I'm also a fan of Runic Armasaur, an underrated cheap card that can randomly draw a ton of cards against the right decks, all while being a decent blocker for just 3 mana. Red also provides us with a ton of creature-based card draw options like the wheels, like Magus of the Wheel. There's so many card draw options that I could talk for another 10 minutes just about it, but there's a lot more to talk about, so let's move on to our removal options. First, we've got creature removal, and let's start strong with Gruul Ragebeast. This card is nuts. It's going to eat anything with 6 or less toughness when it enters the battlefield, and then all future creatures you play will fight as well. It's not a May effect, so this can backfire if you want to play a smaller utility creature and all your opponents have bigger creatures, but in practice, this deck's creatures are on average way bigger than your opponent's creatures, and you'll repeatedly be knocking off smaller creatures from the table. It's great. We can even go for a fight package with cards like Ulvenwald Tracker, Ravager Worm, and Foe Razor Regent. If you don't want to fight creatures, you can just burn them down. Dragonlord Atarka, Bogarden, Hellkite, Magmatic Force, and Inferno Titan all hit hard while picking off opposing creatures. We even have some bona fide creature board wipes. Balefire Dragon can wipe an opponent's board, Ashling the Pilgrim and Jai Ballard, Task Mage, can kill almost everything, and we have a dozen ways to kill flyers like Whiptongue Hydra. To deal with artifacts, there are few better options than Hammer Mage. It destroys all artifacts, including our own, but since Nikya decks run few or none of those, it should have no effect against us. Same goes for Molder Slug, another repeatable source of artifact hate. Manglehorn is yet another great way to hate on artifacts, as is Viashino Heretic. We can hate on both artifacts and enchantments too. Reclamation Sage, Sunder Shaman, and Acidic Slime are all great, flexible removal. But my favorite has to be Bane of Progress, which is absolutely devastating to our opponents, but barely ever affects us at all. Last, but certainly not least, are Graveyard Hate cards. Scavenging Ooze is the best of the best here, offering on-demand card exiling while growing into a legitimate threat. Another Ooze friend, Ravenous Slime, does a great job too. We've also got Loaming Shaman, which can get rid of an entire graveyard when it enters the battlefield. Remember, don't skimp on graveyard removal or you're just going to lose to graveyard decks. It's important to always have access to the right cards for the right situation, so let's talk tutors. Fauna Shaman is an all-star in such a creature-heavy deck since we'll usually have a card to discard, and it fetches nearly any card we'd want. Fierce Empath is highly flexible in our deck too, considering how many big creatures we run, and on the flip side we've got Woodland Bellower to find our smaller utility creatures. While not technically a tutor, we have tons of ramp so we can cast a big Genesis Hydra that can dig deep into our library for the card we want, while also having a big beefy creature to smash face with after. Here's some of my favorite protection cards for the deck. Dosen, the Falling Leaf, stops opponents from messing with you during your turn, so you don't have to worry about instant speed removal or counter magic. Spearbreaker Behemoth can make your most important creatures indestructible, including Nikya. Archetype of Endurance protects all your creatures from targeted removal. Homeward Path is another underrated all-star, stopping blue and black decks from stealing your creatures and using them against you. Finally, it wouldn't be a budget commander deck without at least one combo. The best combo Nikya can pull off is the classic Kiki Combo. Simply copy Zealous Conscripts with Kiki, use the copy's trigger to untap Kiki, and repeat this infinite times to make infinite hasty tokens and win the game. Now, I've covered a lot of creatures, but there's also lots of great non-creature spells that Nikya can greatly benefit from. Guardian Project is the perfect card draw for our deck. Big mana sinks like Genesis Wave and Comet Storm can easily win us the game, and cards so overpowered, some might argue they should be banned, like Survival of the Fittest, are no-brainer inclusions for the deck as well. Just because we can't play these cards when Nikya is on the battlefield doesn't mean we can't play them in our deck, because there will be plenty of opportunities to cast them when she's not on the battlefield. Even better, we can also add ways to remove Nikya from the battlefield whenever we want to, without ruining the mojo of our deck. One of the best ways of getting rid of Nikya is Temur Sabertooth. It's a great card in our deck in general, since we can use its ability to save our creatures from removal, but we can also use it to bounce Nikya to cast our non-creature spells. There are also a ton of lands that can get rid of her, such as Endless Sands, High Market, and Myron the Moaning Well. These slot easily into our deck, tapping for mana, but also have the bonus utility when we need it. Finally, here's our budget deck lists. The first list is currently $35 US. Our goal is simple. Smash face with giant beaters, possibly with the help of Primal Surge. We have tons of ramp and card draw, plus our deck is loaded with powerful removal like Hammer Mage, Molder Slug, Gruul Ragebeast, and Terracodon. We've got Temur Sabertooth, Dark Dweller Oracle, and Endless Sands to get rid of Nikya to cast our few non-creature spells if we need to, most notably Primal Surge. When resolving Primal Surge, make sure to keep 20 or so cards in your library because some of our card draw like Guardian Project doesn't give us the option to not draw and we don't want to deck ourselves. Even without flipping our entire library over, we'll have more than enough hasty, beefy creatures to swing and kill everyone with. Our second deck is currently $100 US. We've vastly improved all aspects of the deck. Our ramp gets much more consistent since we can afford running nearly all the best land ramp. Our removal picks up powerful inclusions like Ravager Worm, and we have better protection options with Spearbreaker Behemoth and Archetype of Endurance. And we have consistent ways of removing Nikya to cast Primal Surge with the inclusion of High Market and more tutors like Ulvenwald Hydra to find those utility lands. We've also added the Kiki Combo as another powerful win condition. Last is our $200 list. All aspects of the deck have been further improved, most notably the lands, which are now super consistent and packed with utility cards like Kessig Wolfrun and Homeward Path. The most expensive pickup is Imperial Recruiter, a super flexible tutor in our deck that can grab both halves of the Kiki Combo. This list is an absolute monster and should be a serious contender at semi-competitive tables. If you want to take the deck even further, then the next upgrades I would recommend would be Oracle of Moldiah instead of Mina and Den, Thorn of Amethyst instead of Voyaging Satyr, and Vexing Shusher instead of Magus of the Candelabra. A Strip Mine and Wooded Foothills wouldn't hurt either. And that's it for budget Nikya of the old ways. I hope you enjoyed my take on her, and if you're looking for a much more in-depth discussion about all the cards that can be used to build a Nikya deck, check out the article in the video description. So, what commander would you like to see next on the series? Let me know in the comment section below because yes, I do read all your comments. And until next time everyone, see ya! Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up with the latest and greatest, click on the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to check out similar videos, click on the links here and here.